The town of Millbrook, Pennsylvania, wasn't the kind of place you'd expect to make headlines. With barely 2,000 residents, it was a quiet town surrounded by thick woods and forgotten farmhouses. The kind of place where everyone knows each other's business, yet some secrets stay buried for decades. In 1987, the Bennett family moved into a farmhouse on the outskirts of Millbrook. Locals said the land had been empty for years after the previous owner lost his mind. But the Bennetts didn't believe in ghost stories. They just wanted a fresh start. The first few weeks were quiet, until strange things started happening. Every morning, their dog would be sitting outside the back door, trembling, staring at the woods. One night, Mrs. Bennett woke to the faint sound of a music box playing from somewhere inside the house. She followed the sound to the attic, but when she opened the door, silence. Just the cold, empty space and the feeling that someone was standing right behind her. By October, things had escalated. Their daughter Emily started talking to someone named Mr. Thomas. When her parents asked who that was, she said, "The man who watches us from the tree line." The Bennetts thought it was an imaginary friend, until Mr. Bennett noticed muddy footprints leading from the forest to the back porch. A week later, the sheriff got a call from the Bennett's neighbors. They'd heard screaming coming from the farmhouse around 2:30 a.m. When officers arrived, the front door was wide open. Inside, the house was a wreck. Drawers pulled out, furniture overturned, and the family gone. The only thing left was the old music box sitting on the kitchen counter, playing by itself. For months, the town searched the woods. No sign of the Bennetts was ever found. But hunters still talk about the farmhouse. How sometimes in the dead of night, they hear a faint lullaby drifting through the trees. And the strangest part? Every few years, the same song is heard again, always on the anniversary of the night they vanished. Ashford Hollow was one of those towns that seemed frozen in time. One main road, a diner that hadn't changed since the 50s, and a population that barely cracked 300. But behind its postcard charm was a story no one dared to talk about. In 1993, a group of teenagers decided to explore the old Ashford mine, a place that had been shut down for over 40 years after a collapse killed 12 workers. Locals claimed that if you went down there after midnight, you could still hear the sound of pickaxes echoing through the tunnels. The group, 5 friends from the local high school, brought flashlights, a camcorder, and that sense of invincibility only teenagers have. The deeper they went, the colder it became. Their breath fogged in the air, even though it was summer. Then, they found something odd. A door made of rusted metal, half buried in rock. It shouldn't have been there. When they prized it open, the camcorder's light flickered. The tunnel beyond looked newer. No decay, no dust. Just clean, cold stone walls, like it had been built recently. Then they heard it. A voice. Low, whispering, echoing in a language none of them understood. 2 of them ran. The others stayed long enough to see something step out of the shadows. Tall, human-shaped, but wrong. Its movements were too smooth, its face too blank, like it was trying to remember how to mimic a person. The footage from that night was found 3 days later, half buried in mud near the mine entrance. Authorities said it was just kids fooling around. But only 2 of the 5 friends ever came back, and neither of them spoke again. One stopped leaving his house entirely. The other moved away and was later found miles from town, wandering aimlessly, muttering, "It wears our faces now." Even now, if you stand near the mine after dark, some say you can still hear the echoes, not of pickaxes, but of people calling for help. Voices that sound eerily familiar, sometimes even calling your name. Harlow Creek, Montana. Population, 284. A picture-perfect town nestled in a valley surrounded by endless pine trees. To anyone passing through, it looked peaceful. but peace has a price here. I arrived in October 2021 as a traveling nurse. The first thing people asked me wasn't about my job. It was whether I'd stay for the Harvest Festival. Everyone said it the same way. You'll love it. Everyone attends. By the second day, I noticed it. The way they watched me. Always smiling, always polite. Every time I asked a question about the festival, they'd change the subject. Halloween night came. I told myself it was just a celebration. Bonfire, costumes, cider. But when I reached the square, it felt wrong. Every face turned toward me, smiling too wide. And then I realized every child I'd seen all week was gone. The mayor stepped onto the stage. "Tonight," he said, "the land chooses." Then everyone turned, in perfect unison, and looked straight at me. They led me toward an old barn behind the square. Inside, the walls were covered with photographs, hundreds of them, each face terrified, each marked with a date, every 10 years, always October 31st. Then the children appeared, standing in a perfect circle, eyes rolled white, chanting. The next moments are a blur. Light, wind, screams. I woke up in the woods, barefoot, bleeding, miles away. Gee. The mayor lifted a rusted knife. "The land must be fed," he whispered. When I checked my phone, I had dozens of missed calls, all from Harlow Creek numbers, and one voicemail. Children's voices whispering in unison, "The land remembers. The land is patient. We'll see you in 10 years. Police went to Harlow Creek the next day. They found nothing. No people, no cars, no records. Just a town square and an old barn full of empty frames. Pleasant Grove, Idaho. Population 1,200. The kind of town that looks perfect on a postcard. White fences, green lawns, smiling neighbors. But perfection hides things. Deep, crawling things. My wife Jennifer and I moved there in January 2020. Newlyweds. We wanted peace. What we found was something else. The neighbors greeted us with casseroles, cookies, and the same exact words. "You're going to love it here." Everyone does. At first, we thought it was just small-town hospitality. Then it got obsessive. They'd show up at all hours. 6 a.m. with bread, 10 p.m. with pie, always smiling, always watching. Jennifer started noticing things. She was a photographer. She saw details. "Have you noticed," she said one night, "that they all look related?" I laughed until she showed me the photos. Different people, same smile, same eyes. We dug into the town's history. 13 families founded Pleasant Grove in 1890, and in every census since, the same 13 names appear. No newcomers, no outsiders. Until us. That night, we found a box in the community center. Photographs of couples, different decades, all standing in front of our house. On the back of each photo was one word. At 2 a.m., we woke to footsteps outside. The entire town was on our lawn. All 1,200 residents, standing perfectly still, smiling. Carol Henderson, our neighbor, stepped forward. "David, Jennifer, you can't leave," she said softly. "Not yet. You're not complete." She told us the truth. In 1890, the founders found something beneath Pleasant Grove, in the caves. Something that offered eternal life, unity, and oneness. But it required new blood. Every few decades, outsiders must join the family. The casseroles, the cookies, the bread, they were all part of it, laced with what they called the blessing. "It's already in you," Carol said, "in your cells. You're changing." We ran. Through the back door, into the car, through the night. The town didn't chase. They just watched, all 1,200 of them, smiling. Doctors found something in our blood, foreign proteins, not human. Over time, Jennifer and I started finishing each other's sentences. Our reflections started to match. And sometimes, late at night, we hear them. All 1,200 voices whispering in perfect harmony, "Come home, you're incomplete." There's a train that passes through Ridgeway only once a month. No schedule, no conductor, no one ever sees it coming, but everyone hears it. Locals call it the midnight train. My name's Aaron, and I've lived in Ridgeway my whole life. When I was 12, my father disappeared. He was the town station master, the only one who ever stayed to watch the tracks after midnight. The last thing he said before that night was, "If you ever hear the train, don't look at it. Just count to 10 and go back to bed." I didn't understand what he meant until years later. When I turned 28, I got his job. Same small office, same tracks, and on my first night shift, I heard it. Old clock striking midnight. The clock struck 12, but there was no train scheduled. The air grew heavy, like the whole town was holding its breath. Then, I saw headlights through the fog, bright, white, and silent. No sound, just light. It moved past me slowly, but the ground didn't shake. The rails didn't move. Inside the windows, people sat still, their faces pale, their eyes open, and among them, my father. He looked right at me, didn't move, didn't blink, just raised his hand and pressed it against the glass. And then he mouthed something. I read it clear as day. "Don't get on." Illuminating fog. The next morning, the tracks were warm, but no one else heard a thing. The townspeople just said, "Some people are meant to board, others just watch." 2 weeks later, I got a letter. No return address. Inside, my father's pocket watch still ticking. And a train ticket. One way, date, next full moon. That night the fog came early, and the clock hit 12. This time, I didn't look away. They say if you listen close enough, you can still hear two sets of footsteps walking down the tracks, one fading, one following. No one's seen me since that night, but every month the train still passes through.